get back to the man coverage. So something that USC wanted to do a lot early on is they wanted to play kind of a 4-2 cover one kind of look. So as I mentioned that USC is pressing all of BYU's receivers right here. And BYU early in the game, a lot of their success early on came from them having a number of really creative ways to attack specifically cover one. So that gives us an idea that they kind of knew what was going to coming. They knew what was going to be coming. They knew what they were going to face. And they had a really good game plan in place to stop it that ultimately forced USC to make a few adjustments. So here's the first look that we're going to see. Let's watch this live just to get a sense for the play. So there's that fake reverse. And then instead of actually handing it off for the reverse, the running back just keeps it for a huge gain. Okay, so what set up this huge gain here? As I mentioned, USC is playing a man coverage out on the edge. And what BYU is doing here to get the ball out onto the edge and to take advantage of those man assignments. Let's step back just a little bit. So as we know, USC is playing man coverage out here on the edge. And so what BYU is going to do, first of all, to set up this reverse, is they're just going to take these receivers and they're going to run those defenders off. And you can see that if those two receivers go away, that's going to open up all of this space on the outside for this reverse to come into. So step number one, when USC mans up on BYU's receivers, those receivers are going to be able to take USC's defenders wherever they want them to go. Now, the fake reverse here is really interesting. Let's take a look at that again. So BYU is bringing the reverse from number 15 right here. He's operating out of the slot. Okay. And earlier I mentioned that when USC plays man, then BYU has the ability to move these defenders wherever they want them to go. So one of the things that they're doing to open up all this space is that they're taking this defender right here who's lined up on the slot receiver. And when he's in man, he has to chase that reverse. So just check out this guy's reaction right here as he gets pulled away by that reverse action, right? That's number 9. He's now running across the formation directly away from this play because he's technically in man coverage on number 15 right here. So this is one part of how BYU is able to use BYU is able to use USC's man assignments against them in order to open up this fake reverse, actually a run play. And then from here, the other thing that BYU's got going on is that we can see right here, number 10, he's a little bit flat-footed right here. He's kind of freezing on this fake reverse action. And so the fake reverse action, the real purpose of it, aside from just getting rid of this defender, is that it's going to hold this linebacker inside and allow him to get outflanked by the running back. So let's just focus in on this guy as this play runs forward. Okay, so here comes the run. We're in slow motion. We see that guy's pursuing right now. He should be able to get to the edge to take away this run. But when he sees the reverse action, he's going to stop. Right? He's going to get flat-footed as the running back's facing that toss on the reverse, and that's the thing that lets the running back get outside of him. So this is just a really creative play off of a fake reverse to open up that edge and create all that running room for the running back to get down the sidelines for a huge gain. And this is just one way that BYU showed a lot of creativity in their early game plan for attacking USC's cover one and starting to maybe make the Trojans think about playing something else. USC number 10's their senior starting linebacker didn't have a great season. Yeah, I mean, I could believe it here. This is tough chasing that reverse, but the reverse really should, when you're in man coverage like this and you've got this guy running across with the reverse, it's not really incumbent on the linebackers to necessarily chase it. I mean, you always want to pursue, but USC is using their man coverage to equalize numbers here. So when this guy goes away, this guy who's covering him should be sufficient to cover him up. So it's a little bit of a surprise to see this guy allowing himself to be outflanked on the edge. Senior starting linebacker, so they're going to replace him next year. Very interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about this reverse action. When we look at 4:53 in the first quarter, I mentioned that BYU got really creative, and so we've just seen the fake reverse right here. This is another way that BYU is able to use their reverse action in order to attack USC's man coverage. So here we see almost an identical look. There is a difference in this pre-snap look. This safety is no longer playing as a true deep middle safety. USC is in kind of more of a cover zero look here, a strong rotated cover zero. But it's still a man coverage, and so the basic principles are still going to be the same. So here we're going to see this is set up the exact same way. So this starts off with a handoff to the running back, and they're bringing number 3 here from the slots. Right here, he's coming on the reverse. Now on this play, the running back's actually going to pitch it out to him for the reverse, but this isn't just a straightforward reverse here. What's actually happening is that they're releasing this quarterback downfield. So this is one of those gadget plays, kind of a trick play that they're using to take advantage of USC's man coverage. And we'll talk about exactly how this interacts with the coverage in a minute. But that reverse player throwing the ball back to the quarterback for a huge gain. BYU, I shouldn't make that mistake. BYU is pulling out all the stops here. As long as USC wants to play man. Now, in terms of why this is good for attack, it's not just that there's a fake reverse with a pass back to the quarterback that makes this hard to defend. Obviously, the more ball carriers, the more tricky it seems. But the real benefit of this play is the way that it attacks USC's man coverage structure. So, if you think about how man coverages generally work, what's going to happen against a look like this is USC will man up on each of the receivers that are split out wide, as we see right here. They'll bring this safety down to man up on the tight end. And then generally the linebackers or the safety up here will be responsible in some combination for defending the running back if he releases out into the route. Now, the person that you haven't heard me mention in any of this is that man coverages never really have a defender for the quarterback. I mean, maybe if they know that something like this might be coming, they'd include it as a coaching point. But when you look at how man coverages are set up, the quarterback is generally not someone that they're accounting for because he's the guy getting the snap. He's almost never actually going to catch a pass. So if we watch this play develop, I'm actually going to slow it down. Okay, we see as the quarterback releases out, there's not a man defender for him. There just isn't. It's not a part of the scheme. There's a man defender for the reverse guy. That's this defender who's running across. There's this safety who is probably going to be involved in coverage on the running back and probably should have been the guy to pick up the quarterback here. But it's just not generally a part of a man structure to include a guy for the quarterback. And so here we see USC recovers not awfully, but that quarterback's able to get out of the backfield completely unguarded. And that's really the thing that lets this work. So this is a great trick play. It's not just tricky because of the reverse, not just tricky because of the quarterback pass, but because of what it does to USC's man coverage structure. So this kind of creativity worked really well for BYU early in the game, and it started to set up some of their early scores and maybe forced USC into going somewhere else. The threat of the quarterback running messed with USC's D all day, starting early with a gadget play featuring him to get in Pendergast's head. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they want to get USC's defenders not trusting their keys, and all that. And I do think that, as we're going to see, they're kind of trying to get them out of this cover one look, which worked really well for USC, especially against the run, in a lot of areas, and maybe try to get them into some other kinds of stuff. We've got some good stuff about the adjustments that USC was trying to make. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely, they don't want USC to be in man, or at least they're running things that are meant to stress man coverage, because that's kind of what they're expecting. This is a really nice look at kind of using these early plays to set up things like that. Cool. So that when we're talking about these creative plays being used to attack man coverage, that was definitely something that USC had to worry about. And we're actually going to see another example of how BYU was able to attack that in just a minute. Let's go to 1454 in the first now. Let's take a look at USC, because there was some adjustment going on early in this game. When we switch to the other side of the ball and we watch USC's offense against BYU, we see that BYU was doing some stuff in the first quarter that they wouldn't necessarily do as much later in the game, and that later in the game they ended up basically running the same defensive look the entire game. So this is really going to be just about BYU running the same front and coverage all game starting in about the second quarter, and USC running the same plays to attack that all game starting in the second quarter. But right here we see some stuff that USC was able to do in order to take advantage of what BYU was running before they started to adjust. So let's just watch this live to get a sense for what's happening here. All right, so thrown out to Pittman on the edge on that speed out. So let's take a look at why this is open. So BYU, generally speaking, a zone team. They played a lot of cover 3 in this game. So in cover 3, they've got they're going to have a safety playing in the deep middle of the field, and they've got cornerbacks on the edge who are going to be defending the deep sidelines. When this cornerback is bailing out to defend the deep sidelines, what's that open up? It opens up all this space in the flat. So what USC wanted to do early against BYU, and generally what they want to do all day against everyone if they can get it, is throw these quick outs underneath of bailing cornerbacks here. So let's slow that down a little bit and get a look at what this, how this develops. Might be a little bit more of a man concept on this. So yeah, there we see that cornerback number 5 bailing out. He's got his hips pointed inside so he can keep an eye on his zone on the quarterback and on any receivers that might be attacking his zone coming from the inside out. So as he's bailing out, Pittman just runs this little speed out underneath of him, and Slovis throws it out for a nice reception on first down. So early on, as in lots of games, USC really wants to attack those soft flats underneath zone cornerbacks who are bailing out. So that's an important thing to understand early, although it is going to change up in a little bit. Let's go to 12:27 now in the first. Here we go. Okay, so here we see BYU again has a safety in the deep middle of the field. They're again going to be playing a zone here, and USC is going to be attacking that zone structure in a slightly different way this time. So we'll watch it live first. All right, so there's the reception again to Pittman, but on a different route and a different concept. So what's happening here is USC is running a curl flat. So let's watch this develop a little bit. Okay, so here we see Pittman releasing vertical, and we see the receiving threat inside of him releasing out to the flat. Okay, so that's the basic route structure. He's releasing outside and sitting down. The quarterback comes back inside to Pittman on the curl. With that guy in the flat sitting out there. So how is this attacking BYU's cover 3 structure? Well, in cover 3, as we know, this cornerback's going to be bailing to play a deep outside third. He's one of the 3 guys. Pittman's a great yards after catch receiver. They'll take that quick throw in the flat all day. Absolutely. That's the number one kind of default thing that you're going to see USC do, because he's so strong and he's got deceptive speed. He can really get into a seam and kind of knife through a defense like that. He's especially dangerous on slants. Like if you can get him on a slant running into a blitz or something like that, then he could get 15 or 20 yards on that sucker. A quarterback's best friend in a lot of ways. And once again, I apologize for the lag. I did some research on it, and that is just kind of par for the course for anything that's a live stream, because it's got to get encoded from my computer and uploaded to YouTube. So there is like a 20-second delay or something, but I do keep an eye on the questions, and I will come back to them for sure. So back to this curl flat concept. Remember that in cover 3, we know this cornerback is bailing to play a deep outside third. We know Pittman's running a curl. So when this guy bails deep and outside, Pittman running back inside and toward the line of scrimmage is going to be particularly hard for him to defend. So in cover 3, or actually I'm going to call this cover 30 because BYU is bringing a 3-man rush and then dropping 5 underneath defenders into zone. So it's a 3-deep shell, but because there's that extra defender in coverage, I call that cover 30. In this kind of cover 30 look, when this cornerback bails to defend the deep sidelines, this defender inside of him becomes what's called a curl flat defender. So if we imagine Pittman running his curl, we see that defender should be sitting right inside of it. But the way that USC is attacking that zone structure is that when they run this slot receiver out, that's going to take this curl flat defender and it's going to force him to widen in order to avoid getting outflanked by that guy. So the cornerback is going to take the vertical stem of Pittman, and the curl flat defender is going to widen with this receiving threat working out into the flat. So we see right here, that guy has widened out. When we look at the throw, we can really get a good look at it. So here's that curl flat defender. He's widened all the way outside the numbers with his flat threat. And what that does is that opens up the middle inside of him for Pittman to run this curl inside of and underneath this cover 3 cornerback. So a really nice use of a 2-receiver game to spring Pittman open for this route here. So another good way that USC is able to attack BYU's cover 3 structure, or cover 30 structure here. And they were pretty effective at this all game, although we're going to see some notable exceptions. Let's see here. I just set up that curl flat concept. That's going to come back almost immediately hit the goal line. Let me get this loaded in my video here. Okay, so this is going to be the same basic concept. It's against a slightly different coverage. Let's watch it live just to see how it develops. I believe it's coming from the bottom of the screen here. Yeah, it is. All right, so that should look familiar based on what we've just said. It's out of a different formation, so they're dressing it up a little bit differently, but it's the same concept that we saw early in the drive. BYU's not in cover 3 here. They're taking their weak safety and slinging him over toward the strong side where there are all these receiving threats. And so the way BYU is actually playing is they've got this cornerback playing over the top. He's almost kind of a deep half player here. And then they're spinning this guy. I actually don't know. That guy might be a weak side linebacker, but he's the curl flat defender on this play. But it's the same basic setup. Cornerback playing deep, curl flat defender underneath, and USC is just attacking that in the exact same way. So I'll slow this down so we can see it. Okay. In this case, the flat route's coming from the running back out of the backfield to create that two-man game again. Okay, so once again, here's the running back. He's running to the flat. That takes that outside linebacker, who's the curl flat defender, and forces him to widen in order to avoid getting outflanked. And Slovis comes back inside to Pittman on that curl, curling up inside of and underneath the cornerback who's playing outside and over the top of him. So just two great looks at that curl flat concept and the way that it's helping USC move the ball against BYU's zone coverages early. Nice. I'm going to give 20 seconds in case people have questions about that drive. So go ahead if you got any questions. Here's a break. And keep in mind these zone coverages that we're looking at. We've seen cover 3. And I'm actually going to call this coverage buzz. So while I wait for questions, I'll give you a little bit more terminology. Other than the 12 personnel, this is their same offense all year. Yeah, this is classic air raid. Even down, the fact that they're attacking cover 3, I think the air raid coaches famously say everything works against cover 3. So this is exactly the kind of thing that they want to do. Although the curl flat is like not at all scheme specific. This is going to be run by anybody, really against any zone coverage that drops off this cornerback and tries to play with a curl flat defender underneath. This concept is going to be money against anything like that. Yeah, and what Hidlade is referencing here is USC did start out the game with a lot of 2 tight end stuff. They didn't keep up with it very much after kind of their initial couple of drives, and so I haven't included too much about what they were doing in there, but it was kind of a strange look from them to come out with all this like 2 tight ends, Y wing kind of thing. Not the most common air raid look, not the most common look from USC, and it's curious to me that they used it a little bit at the beginning of the game and then didn't really come back to it until overtime. But we'll get back to it there. One more time, just for the terminology, I called this coverage buzz to this side. I'm assuming this guy's an outside linebacker, although I don't have BYU's depth chart in front of me. But what I mean by buzz is buzz means that a backer is responsible for defending the flat. So the first letter of the word buzz is B. That tells us that a backer is going to be responsible for defending the flat. This contrasts with what we're actually going to see soon, which is cloud, where a corner defends the flat. So cloud is for corner, buzz is for backer. And you can also sky the flat and have a safety roll down and defend the flat. But basically any time that BYU wants to buzz the flat, they want to put a linebacker out there, USC wants to run this curl flat concept at that guy all day and kind of get him stuck in between a 2-man zone stretch. Awesome. Okay, let's look. So USC, the story of this game for USC was all about interceptions. They threw 3 of them, including one in overtime that ended the game. And there are common threads with 2 of them. So we can't really talk about this game without talking the interceptions, because USC did manage to score some points. If they wouldn't have given up those 3 possessions, then they could have scored a lot more. So let's check out this first one. Is 7:26 in the first quarter. So this is a 3rd and 7. We'll watch it live just to see it in all of its horror. All right, awesome. So this is actually a play that sets up the final interception that sealed the game for BYU. This is the exact same coverage. The quarterback makes a different read here, but the underlying issue is the same. So let's start off by looking at USC's receivers. I'm putting this in slow-mo. So we're looking at these 2 inside receivers in the trips. To throw, you're talking about the play at 7:25 now, the interception? Because if it's the interception, I think he is actually reading here. Although he probably had an idea. And when we look at the alignment, we can really see why. I'm going to make the argument that he's reading it and that comes back to bite him when he tries to make the different read at the end of the game. So I'm gonna kind of lay out that argument, though. I'd be curious to hear the counter argument, because it does look bad. He kind of throws it straight to a linebacker. But I think that what's happening here, let's look at the route concept, because that's a crucial part of my argument. Okay, so what we see is we've got the number 3 receiver running inside. Okay, and the number 2 receiver is also going to be running inside. So they're trying to create another zone horizontal stretch with both of these receivers releasing inside. And I think that what's happening here is that Slovis knows he's got number 15, Drake London, releasing inside. He's got St. Brown releasing inside. And so I think that Slovis is actually reading this defensive back. And he's saying, okay, if that defensive back sits inside on London, then he can't defend St. Brown, so I'll throw to him. If this guy sits outside, right, then depending on what this linebacker does, he'll either throw to London or he'll go somewhere else with the ball. So I do think that Slovis is keeping an eye on this guy right here. I think that explains the read, because if we watch this, BYU's doing something kind of interesting. It's not a classic spot dropping zone coverage here, kind of like we've been talking about. So here we want to keep an eye on London. We want to keep an eye on the guy that's originally lined up outside of him. As London comes down inside, notice that his defender comes down inside with him. And so if we think that Slovis is reading that guy, right? If we think that Slovis is reading this guy, then he sees him jump down inside, and he thinks that he's got all this space for St. Brown running the in. Right? So if Slovis is reading this guy, I think that his throw makes a lot of sense, because he sees that he's the guy with the best shot to defend St. Brown. That guy chases London down inside. Slovis, is not reading this linebacker. His read was here, and so he thinks that he's going to have space right here. What BYU's doing that's really tricky is that it's almost like they're manning up on London and then playing zone with everybody else. So it looks like this guy is kind of man. He's chasing London and forcing him inside to the safety and the backers. But then this guy is actually bailing out to play as kind of part of a coverage triangle on the 2 outside receivers here. So we see that those 2 defenders cross right there. The guy chasing London runs down with him almost in man, and this linebacker pops out in zone, and that's the thing that puts him in the path of this throw. I think Slovis just didn't see that guy. I mean, this is kind of a weird way for this coverage to develop, honestly. Kind of manning up on number 3 and then popping a linebacker out across his face to get to that slot. You don't see that a ton. And remember, the quarterback can't see all 11 guys on the field. He's got his key. He's got his read. It's not surprising to me that he didn't necessarily see this linebacker popping outside. And so I think he was reading it. I think that that's what's going on here, but I'm definitely open to an alternative argument. Really interesting coverage, and keep that in mind. Man on the number 3 receiver, popping this zone defender out. Right? I mean, you can almost imagine what Slovis is going to do, right? If he's expecting this guy to stay over the top and play man, and if he's expecting this guy to pop outside, he's going to think there's going to be a lot of space in here the next time BYU runs this coverage, and that's where he's going to end up throwing the interception. So really interesting schematic back and forth. Let's watch that one more time slow-mo. We're focusing on these 2 defenders now. Oh, Vaughn's is wide open when the other cornerback drops too. Yeah, that's his favorite throw, right? So here, Hitler's talking about this guy up here at the top of the screen. In an air raid, you always know Tyler Vaughn. So he's seeing this guy bailing out. We know USC loves to throw underneath those bail cornerbacks. So, that's that look that we saw from Pittman just a few plays ago. A little bit tougher of a throw to the wide side of the field, but it's one we've seen Slovis make. So he totally could have held on and looked at that cornerback and seen if he was bailing out, especially because Utah hardly ever pressed in this game. It wasn't a big part of what they did. Although they did do something to take away these quick outs that we're going to see before too long. Let's check out one more interception because there were 2 early, and it kind of killed USC's momentum in a lot of ways. So we want to look at 504. Let me see if I... Oh, wow. Okay. This came in really late. I'm going to find this in the full game broadcast because the clip that I took starts way too late. So let me go here. We're going to go to 504 because I don't want to miss this. But I got to scroll through to find this play. Okay, here we go. This is a different kind of interception. The schematic explanation behind it is a little bit different. Let me get this full speed. Okay, so here we can just watch it live. The play is they're running either 4 verts or Y cross. I don't remember exactly what it is, but either way, they're taking this number 3 receiver and using him to attack the weak side seam. I think this is probably 4 verts run out of trips. Yeah. So Slovis wants to hit this number 3 receiver working over the middle. BYU's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. BYU's got a deep safety playing either in the middle of the field or on the hash. So Slovis is kind of targeting this space. He's trying to drop it over the linebackers and underneath the safety. But I think this is a pretty rough read on Slovis's part. What's really going on here with this pick is that, we remember that BYU likes to bail out their cornerback and then buzz the flat, meaning that a linebacker is going to play outside. So this linebacker is sitting here in zone. The problem is that USC isn't attacking that guy. So unlike on some other plays, they're not forcing him to widen with a route in the flat because there's only one wide receiver back here. So what's going to happen, I'm going to slow it down again, is that as this play develops, that guy's not being threatened. He has no threat in his flat, and so he's just got his eyes on Slovis all day. Slovis saw him sitting out wide and thought that he wasn't going to be a factor. We see this guy widening, right, to play his kind of curl zone. And so Slovis is thinking he's going to have a throwing lane developing right in between these 2 backers, but this linebacker just reads his eyes, melts inside, and gets there for the interception. So if we go back and look at where that guy was pre-snap, and we can really see kind of the problem. Let me speed this up a little bit. Okay. It's a little bit slow because I'm in the full game broadcast instead of the small clip. But so this is the guy who gets the interception. And we can see why Slovis thinks he's not going to be a factor. But he just initially widens, melts down inside, and gets that pick following Slovis's eyes. You've got to control those defenders if you're going to throw that. And I think, he's just not really seeing, he's just not seeing that dropper. Something else that we can point out about this play is BYU's penchant for 8-man coverages. I think I've alluded to it before, but they played BYU getting pressure with number 3. That nose tackle center matchup was a huge issue. That nose tackle kind of bullied. So we're looking right here. That nose tackle was able to bully USC's center kind of all game and push him back. There's another sack. I don't remember if I put it in, but here he's just pushing him back, shedding, and getting there and forcing Slovis to get rid of it. And he could have thrown a check down, but these linebackers would have closed really fast. He probably could have got that completion though. I think I'm seeing that the same way you are. But that's rough with that nose tackle bearing down on you. You got to get rid of it quickly. It's no surprise you didn't see that weak side linebacker. It all works together. Yeah, and when BYU is able to drop 8 and get that kind of pressure with a 3-man rush, that's like the gold standard for defending the air raid. If you can get 3 guys over the top, 5 guys underneath, and get pressure, it's going to be hard to run a lot of spread kind of passing attacks here. Nice observation. Yeah, that center had a rough day. So that was interception number 2. We see what happens when USC doesn't control that backside curl flat defender, that buzz backer. It can cause some problems for him. Nice. But it wasn't all bad for USC. They ended up getting some scores early. So we've already seen their first touchdown drive. They, toward the end of the first quarter, got into a drive that ended up getting them a field goal. So they were able to stay tied. Let's take a look at this right here. Okay. I'm going to remind myself what's going on this play. Oh, okay, great. So this is ultimately a coverage bust or an inherent problem with the zone structure for BYU. So we've talked about the major themes of BYU playing zone coverages, playing 3 deep zones, taking this cornerback and bailing him out to play over the top of this receiver right here. We've talked about, in this case, I think we got a sky safety here. So I believe that this is a safety who's going to be playing curl to flat in that role we've seen a linebacker fulfilling. And what USC is doing is they're releasing this tight end or H-back out into the flat. This guy's going to widen with him, but at a certain point, this guy's going to convert that flat to a wheel, and this guy's not going to carry him. So we can see how that develops at full speed. So here's Pittman going. We know he's going to take that cover 3 corner away. We see this tight end releasing out to the flat. That's going to control the sky safety here who's playing curl to flat. Okay. Slovis has to scramble a little bit. But here's the problem, because this is that sky safety. So we see that what's happened is that tight end has just continued on down the sidelines, and that sky safety has not continued to run with him. If we run this back just a little bit more, we can see what happens to the cornerback. So USC, I believe that's Pittman right there. Yeah, so that's Pittman right there. Pittman's run a dig, taking him over the middle, and his cornerbacks chased him. I don't know if that was a mistake or not. Maybe that cornerback should have stayed outside and let the linebackers inside pick up Pittman. It depends on how BYU is playing their coverage rules. But one thing we know for sure is there's not a cornerback over the top of this because he's chased Pittman down inside. We know this sky safety does not chase USC's tight end as he releases down the sidelines, at least not until it's too late, and the Trojans are able to get a huge 60-yard gain out of this. So this is a nice play for attacking BYU, maybe a weakness in BYU's zone coverage structure down the field, although this does turn into a scramble drill a little bit. I don't know if this tight end was actually running a called wheel or if he just converted it once he saw Slovis scrambling. Because oftentimes, they say once the quarterback starts scrambling, just take off down the field. So this might have been one of those plays. Let's take a look at that pressure and see what's going on here. So once again, it's a 3-man pressure. Yeah, leaves the pocket. I think he's got a little bit more time to throw here, just from a pressure standpoint. But nothing really develops the way that he wants it to, at least until he starts scrambling and that tight end takes off down the field. And so this play ended up setting up a field goal. Now, we're not going to watch the field goal because obviously we can see it's just going to be a chip shot. But the reason that it's a field goal instead of a touchdown, I think, is interesting. Let's see. So let's watch this play live. We know Slovis has already thrown 2 interceptions. Here comes a near third. All right, so that made USC fans everywhere nervous. So let's talk about the scheme of this. First of all, we see this is something similar to what we saw on the curl flat touchdown to Pittman. So we saw Pittman run a curl here with a running back releasing in the flat to control this buzz linebacker. This is a similar coverage where this weak safety is slung over toward the strong side. So we're getting this kind of buzz coverage with a cornerback over the top and a backer in the flat. And so Slovis has already had some success with that. He's looking to exploit this same area. The difference is that USC is running an RPO here. So on this play, the running back, instead of releasing into the flat to control this buzz backer, the running back is actually running the zone component of an RPO play here. So we can see how that impacts things. Okay, so there's nobody to control this buzz backer out here and to force him to widen. And so when Pittman releases back inside, he is releasing into space with this cornerback over the top. Right? I mean, the cornerback's not the issue. Pittman's totally open. But the problem is that BYU's linebackers are going to do a great job of bailing out after they've attacked the run. Actually, this guy's going to get a hand on it right here. It's not the buzz backer. And he almost tips that up for his cornerback. Let's take a look at where that guy's coming from. So it's this linebacker up here who ends up getting the tip. So he's just reacting to Slovis keeping it and releasing out wide, melting back inside to get a hand on that. BYU's also got a safety and a cornerback coming around. So this is something that looked really open early in the down, but BYU's defenders did a nice job of kind of recovering to the initial run action and getting underneath it and tipping it up. And the reason that I'm pointing this out, aside from the fact that this is part of why USC ended up kicking a field goal instead of getting a touchdown, because they didn't move the ball much better on the next 2 plays, is because of the fact that this is an RPO. So there is run blocking going on right here. The running back does have the potential to get a handoff here. And Slovis is reading, it looks like, one of these backside linebackers maybe. And and the problem is that his read tells him to pull the ball and throw it, and that kind of leads him into this situation where he almost throws an interception. So we're going to see later on in this game, USC actually reduced the number of RPOs that they were running significantly. They started to run just a lot more straightforward run plays, A, because it was working, but B, I think also because with all of these defenders, remember BYU's rushing 3, right? They're dropping all these guys into coverage, and as we've seen now on a couple of plays, these floating linebackers in the middle of the field were causing serious problems for Slovis and kind of forcing him into a lot of interceptions or near interceptions. And so as the game went on, particularly in the second and third quarters, not so much in the fourth, but the second and third quarters, a lot more plays are just straight up runs where Slovis isn't reading anybody. He doesn't have to make those decisions. So they kind of took that off the table for him a little bit once they found out, especially that their run game could be so effective, or pretty effective. So that's, 1 quarter, almost 3 interceptions. And USC ends up having to take the field goal, making it 10-10. All right, I'm going to leave another 20 seconds there if there are any comments or questions. Third down on this drive? Yeah, for sure. The one right here at the goal line? First play of the second quarter. All right, perfect. Yeah, we could look at that. All right, we are looking at the play that forced the field goal. Here we go. All right, 3rd and goal. We see the Trojans haven't moved it very much. Let me refresh my memory about what happens here. Okay, let's take a look at what BYU's doing. So as we kind of process this, we're seeing they're in a slightly different alignment, but similar kind of coverage structure. We've got probably that buzz backer out here with the cornerback playing over the top. We've got the weak safety slung over to the strong side. And so what's USC trying to do? Okay, they're running a little mesh. That's where Slovis ends up going with the ball. What about at the top of the screen? Okay, so on 3rd down, I think we're probably not... Let's talk coverage first of all. So it looks like this cornerback is a deep sideline defender. And so when his receiver releases inside, he's going to be sitting on top of this wheel that's coming from St. Brown. So I think that's probably not the read here. Yeah, the cornerback is passing off in zone. I believe that's Pittman. And so he's going to be over the top of this wheel. That's not going to be an option. On 3rd and goal from the 9, you're probably not going to throw it out to the running back here. BYU sitting in zone. So Slovis is thinking that he's going to hit this guy sitting in this zone void in between the 2 linebackers. I imagine you're probably wondering if he should have thrown this right here. Working back inside. Let's take a look at where Slovis's eyes are. That you hate the play design for 3rd and long. It's going to Pittman or it's a field goal. Yeah, unless they can maybe get like a running back out flanking somebody. 4 receivers short of the line to go. Harold does this a ton all year. What do I think of it? What do I think of it? I think that this is covered up pretty well. I mean, obviously he ends up throwing to Vaughn's right here. But yeah, I don't think, especially given what we've seen, I think that if he tries to go to Pittman here, his eyes are taking both of these linebackers underneath the route, and he's at risk of throwing another interception. So I would agree that none of the routes up here to the wide side of the field are probably viable options, unless he just wants to sling it out to the running back here and let him try to break a tackle. I don't imagine that Harrell was honestly expecting man coverage from BYU here, so the mesh was probably never going to be able to create a pick or anything like that. I think that BYU wins the coverage call here. I mean, in terms of the people short of the line to gain, it all just depends on what you're expecting from the coverage. I mean, it happens all the time that you could throw something out in the flat and then it could get into the end zone around the edge. With all these zone defenders sitting out here, that's probably less likely to happen. It seems like, anything other than they're really working, I guess, kind of a post wheel, a two-man game with Pittman in the wheel route, trying to target that cornerback. Yeah. I don't think that Silva's had a shot at throwing to Pittman, and I would agree that none of the underneath options are looking very good here. I also would not love this this passing concept against this coverage. Later on, we're going to see maybe it's BYU throw a play like this and be able to knife into the end zone in between those two linebackers. I don't know, not a great concept. It's hard to call up a great concept against these 8-man coverages. I don't know. What could you have done instead? Yeah, there's stuff. I mean, maybe could have gone with a rollout game. There are a variety of things. Yeah, I'm not in love with this concept either. Fade. Maybe. Yeah, and if you think that you can beat this guy's playing, I mean, the fade would be tough because this cornerback does seem to me to be playing kind of a soft press with outside leverage. And so I don't know if Pittman is going to be able to get a clean release to the sidelines here. And he's doing that because he's got that safety inside. So you are at risk of getting a kind of high-low bracket with the cornerback dropping under the fade while this safety flies out over the top. Not that Michael Pittman couldn't bring that down. But I think with the cornerback's leverage playing outside here, it'd be hard for Pittman to get that free release to the sidelines. That doesn't mean he couldn't do it, but, and then down here at the bottom of the screen, we've got a similar high-low bracket with that buzz call because we got the cornerback over the top and outside, and we've got the linebacker dropping inside and underneath. But yeah, 3rd and 9's tough. BYU does a pretty good job of dropping under everything here too. Interesting stuff. And just from a play calling perspective, in terms of the fade, again, BYU doesn't really press all that much. And here, this is a pretty soft press. He's sitting at about 4 yards. But it's definitely a popular red zone play. Let's see here. Let's take a look at BYU's next touchdown drive. Okay, here we go. So this will be 13:56 in the second. I'm going to let that load up. Okay, so here we go. This is BYU's first touchdown drive. We're starting to get into, where am I? 13:56. Oh, okay, awesome. So we're seeing USC here. What are they doing? So here they're playing kind of like a two-man kind of look almost. So they're not in cover one anymore. They've got a safety over the top to each side, but they're definitely playing man, at least on the outside here. There might be some zone stuff going on the inside, but this is still ultimately man coverage for everybody out on the edge, and that's going to cause a problem for USC, just like we've seen their man coverages had trouble picking up some of the tricky stuff that BYU is doing on this play. So here they're going to take their running back, and they're just going to sneak him out, and if we think that, there might be a zone concept going on with these linebackers in the middle while everybody else plays man, neither of these linebackers is going to widen with this running back as he comes across. So let's actually slow this down and take a look at what's happening. Okay, so there's a little play action fake here. Show run action, although nobody on USC is buying it because it's 3rd and 14. We see there's a safety over the top to each side. We've got man coverage out here. Okay, so the running back is coming off of his play action and releasing into the flat to the opposite side of the field, and there's just not a man defender for him. So the quarterback's going to throw it out to him, and USC doesn't have anybody immediately on him. We can see, I talk about maybe a zone concept on the inside here. We can see that when we look at what's going on with the tight end. So, the big question here is two-man rush. This is not a great moment for USC, but if we talk in terms of controlling defenders, the guy who would have to cover the running back here, because USC, I believe they're dropping this stand-up guy and bringing the other two. if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so they're dropping this standout guy and bringing the other two. So that guy's kind of a spy. He's there for the quarterback. And as you mentioned, the quarterback was big trouble for USC all game. So this guy's kind of a quarterback spy. So apparently it's not his job to pick up the running back coming through here. So the question then becomes, why didn't this linebacker pick up the running back? He should be the guy that does it. And if you talk about controlling defenders, he's going to get controlled by the route of this tight end right here. So the tight end's going to release inside. We're not going to be able to see his reaction perfectly well, but when that tight end comes down inside, that's going to pull this linebacker right inside with him. So here we go. The tight end comes running across. That linebacker's got eyes on him. He's melting down inside a little bit, and he just gets out leveraged by this running back in the flat. But the more I look at it, I think this is pretty clearly his own thing. I think that weak side linebacker had to pick this up. He had to take this in the flat because if we go back to the pre-snap, I'm going to speed it up again. If we go back to the pre-snap, we know this guy's in man, so he can't pick up the running back because he's got to cover this guy on the outside. It really should fall to this linebacker to pick up that running back, and he just gets distracted by the tight end coming down, doesn't see the running back sneaking out after play action. By the way, it's really hard. I think I've mentioned this in a couple breakdowns, but it is hard to when the offense wants to come back and throw to the guy that they've just play actions to, because what's happening for these linebackers is they're all reading run or pass. On 3rd and 14, they're probably thinking pass, but in theory, they're reading this running back and the offensive line to see if he's going to get the ball in the handoff. And then once they clear that guy, once they know he hasn't gotten the handoff, he can kind of like slip out of their consciousness a little bit. That's not an excuse, but it's something that happens kind of a lot. But yeah, this zone linebacker up here needed to take that running back with everybody else playing man on the edge, and he just didn't get to it. Going to be their starting inside linebacker under Orlando. Number 1. Is that the weak side linebacker? I can't see that guy's number. Is that Will? Yeah, it is. Okay. We'll talk about Orlando when we get maybe to Utah's bowl season. Even though I know Naivar was coaching by then, we'll talk about Orlando. I don't think USC's defense is going to get any sounder under Orlando. They kind of doubled down on all the worst aspects of Clancy Pendergast, in my opinion, but they'll probably create some chaos. But yeah, that wasn't the best read by that weak side linebacker, who surely was playing what's called swing deep of 3, which means when this running back releases out, he's got to take him. You've been watching a lot of Orlando? Let's see here. Let's look at 11:05. Yeah, his defenses give up so many big plays, and you don't have to watch film for that long to understand why. All the exotic blitzes and stuff look really cool, but man. All right, what's going on here? It's not all bad for USC's defense, and like this kind of, it's not like 100% a lock man kind of defense here. I think USC's they do look pretty well coached up. Something that I worry about with Orlando in terms of all the motions and shifts that can happen here, and just fitting different kinds of run plays. So I just included this because this is a pretty good run fit by USC. There's something a little tricky happening. BYU's cracking back this. I assume that guy's a tight end or a big receiver. They're cracking back on this defensive end and then pulling the left tackle around the edge. So we'll show that in slow motion. So, this is a good rep for USC's linebackers here to read that pull. We see they've got this defensive back coming down to fit outside. He's actually fitting inside. So BYU, we saw that they were trying to do all that creative stuff with their run game. And here, they're trying to get this offensive tackle outside on the edge. As the motion comes down, we see that, this defensive back does a nice job of not biting, reading the tackle, pulling at him, being ready to fill outside while his teammate's able to fill inside. So against all the kinds of motions and shifts, I think for the most part, USC looked pretty well coached up and prepared, although we have seen those trick plays at the beginning that caused them some trouble. So I just wanted to include this to show kind of one of the things that their defense did well, especially within this single high scheme, which is what they've got going on right now. They were able to fit up the run pretty well. So it's just a nice job taking on that pulling tackle. I just wanted to give a little bit of credit where it's due, because obviously USC's defense did get some stops, But speaking of that cover one, that brings us to this touchdown from BYU, which, I mean, you wouldn't normally expect USC to have trouble manning up against BYU just because of the stereotypes about the talent that's on each team. But this play, we see single high coverage, man coverage across the board. This number 2 defender is just going to get burned for the long touchdown here. So there we go. He's already lost. The quarterback doesn't underthrow it by too much. But this guy, he's up here, he's pressing. He's really just losing this right at the line of scrimmage. So let's watch this receiver's release and see how quickly he's getting that step there. Because the defender turns and runs okay, but he's just already losing right here. So nice move by the receiver to wipe away his hands. And at this point, that guy's lost the route. He's a step behind. As long as this is an accurate ball, he doesn't have a chance. Another thing that I would point out here is that when we look at this wide receiver's release, he's able to get outside of that defender. And so when that guy's able to get outside and beat the jam, he's not going to end up anywhere near that free safety in the deep middle of the field. So there's no help coming for this guy. So once he loses this matchup at the line, it's basically over. A pretty good ball from the quarterback. Might have been able to lead him a little bit more outside to avoid that left hand getting in there from the defender. But definitely got the job done. And this is the thing. I mean, if I tell you that USC is going to try to man up on BYU and press and use their talent to try and overwhelm them, most people probably think that was a good idea. But there were some cases here where BYU was able to get past them. It's good receiver play here. I just wish that quarterback would have put the ball outside a little bit more, like to the pylon. Oh, I know. USC is going to be doing this to Utah all game next week against the Utes. All right, so that gets us to 17-10. So BYU's got the lead at this point. USC, not to be outdone, is going to come back and drive. So this is starting at 9:45 in the second. Let's take a look at what's going on here. All right, let me remind myself of why I pulled this play. Okay, so there are a couple of things that are matching up here. So let me double check the coverage here. Okay, awesome. There's a bunch here. This is an important play with a lot of key concepts. So BYU, we'd seen that they had been playing kind of a traditional cover 3. So remember we talked about this cornerback bailing out, playing as a deep sideline defender. And then we saw that they were buzzing the flat down here. So cornerback over the top, linebacker running out into the flat. As the game wore on, BYU ended up playing a lot more cover 3 cloud. So we've already introduced those concepts. Buzz means a backer's in the flat. Sky means a safety in the flat. Cloud means a cornerbacks in the flat. So what's happening here is BYU is leaving their cornerback. Instead of making him the deep outside third defender in this cover 3 shell, they're leaving this cornerback in the flat. And remember that the thing that's designed to take away is we know USC loves to take Michael Pittman here and run him on those speed outs underneath a bailing cornerback. That's a huge part of their offense. We've already seen it. So when BYU clouds the flat, when they put that cornerback in the flat, that's going to take away that option. And that's why they played so much cloud. We see right here, if Pittman were running a speed out, that cornerback's in perfect position to take it. Meanwhile, the strong safety's rotating over the top to cover that deep outside third down the sidelines. So this is a nice adjustment BYU made. They really rolled with this for the entire game from here on out with very minimal exceptions to take away these quick throws. We'll see the weak side down here can still be a problem because when they cloud the flat up here, then they need one safety to play the sidelines, the second safety to play the deep middle. So they need this cornerback to bail out and play a deep outside third. So there are still opportunities down here to the weak side, but they are able to take away this strong side flat by clouding the flat here. So number one concept, this is what I'll call cover 30 cloud. Remember, cover 30 means that there is a 3 deep zone structure. But when we add the 0 to cover 3 to make it cover 30, that means that there are 5 underneath defenders instead of 4 with a 3-man pass rush. So BYU playing a lot of cover 30 cloud. They're doing it out of this 3-4 alignment. So here they got their 3 down linemen, outside linebacker, 2 guys inside. And they're often walking these guys out to provide help in the flat against like Tyler Vaughn's down here to the weak side. So cloud the flat over here, buzz the flat down here, try to take away those quick underneath throws that USC loves. Now, whenever USC faces a 3-man line like this, particularly a 3-man line where this defensive end up here at the top of the screen is playing a 4-eye technique, meaning pinched inside of the left tackle, the way that they're going to attack this is they're going to let that left tackle outflank that defensive end. So let's see that develop right here. The left tackle's already got leverage just by alignment. So here we see the left tackle is able to stay outside of that defensive end. He and the left guard are comboing up to the inside linebacker right here. Okay, so we're going to get left tackle, left guard combo from the defensive end up to the inside linebacker. They're going to be able to seal both of those guys off. They've got really good leverage to do it. And then what they're doing is when teams play with this pinch defensive end, what USC wants to do is they want to take their H-back here, and they just want to use him to kick out that outside linebacker and create the outside edge of the hole. So we can really, this develops really nicely on this play if we watch it in slow motion. Okay, left tackle seals off the defensive end, combos up to the inside linebacker, while meanwhile their H-back has kicked out the outside linebacker right here. So this is an incredibly common way for 20 personnel teams, meaning teams that play with 2 running backs, to attack 3-4 structures. Super common. You'll see it from a lot of different teams. USC leans on it like crazy. They love running these zone plays toward the H-back right here. So one more time, these 2 guys combo from the defensive end up to the inside linebacker. H-back kicks out the outside linebacker on the edge. And this is pretty textbook. And the running back hits that lane right in between them for a big gain. So yeah, this play shows a lot of themes that didn't so much happen in the first quarter, but that are happening now and are going to happen throughout the duration of the game. Let's take another look at so we mentioned this cover 3 cloud structure with this cornerback clouding the flat. Let's take a look at one of the ways that USC was then able to turn around and attack that structure not long after BYU started running it. So now we need to go to 9:18 in the second. There's Graham surveying his offense. Okay, so here we're going to see a similar kind of look. I believe that, let me double check on where the cloud corner is. Yeah, so the cloud corner is here to the wide side of the field. So they're bailing and playing buzz up at the top of the screen, and then they're clouding the flat down at the bottom of the screen with this defensive back bailing to play outside and over the top. And so the way that USC is attacking this coverage, one way that you can attack this is to go after this cloud cornerback right here. And that's what USC is going to do right here. So if we run this forward, what are we seeing? Okay, so all that they're doing here is they're taking this outside receiver and they're running him deep, and then they're taking their running back and releasing him out into the flat, and they're just trying to create a 2-on-1 horizontal stretch or vertical stretch on that corner. So the corner, you can see his helmet right here underneath the second 40. He's bailing out to play underneath of his receiver who's just run deep. Because remember, he's playing in the flat. He's an underneath defender. He has to take away underneath routes. So he's bailing to stay underneath routes by that guy to prevent like a comeback or a back shoulder throw. But when he sinks, that opens up things in the flat for this running back who's leaking out. So going after that cloud cornerback was a way that USC was able to attack BYU for some decent first down gains. And that cloud corner isn't out of there completely. He's going to end up being able to rally and get in on the tackle. But, attacking him at 2 levels with a receiver here and a running back out in the flat, that really forces him to choose. Here, when he sinks a little bit, that opens up this space in the flat for the running back. And there he gets in, almost gets in on the tackle, misses the tackle. So that's one good way that USC was able to attack this coverage structure. Let's check out 2706 just for some kind of blocking scheme 101 stuff here. So here, let me just double check what I'm seeing. Yeah, okay, so we mentioned that when USC is going up against a 3-4 structure like this, they like to use their guard and tackle to combo from the defensive end up to the inside linebacker, then use the H-back to kick out the outside linebacker on the edge, opening up that off-tackle seam. But that's not the only way that USC can run this play, and I believe that there are some things that develop on the fly. So I think that this guy is, to some extent, reading the block on this defensive end right here. And let me show you what I mean. If we watch how this develops, notice that defensive end has popped outside. Right, he hasn't let himself get outflanked by the right tackle. He's popped outside. And I believe that the H-back here is reading that block because if that guy pops outside, he doesn't want to continue out and block this outside linebacker. If he comes out to block this outside linebacker, this defensive end's still on the edge. This ball's still not getting outside. So there's no way this ball can get to the off-tackle gap because of this defensive end. Let's watch him one more time. So we're watching this guy. Watch how he pops outside of the right tackle once the ball's snapped. Right, so this run is not getting off tackle, and I believe that what's happening here is that the H-back is reading that block. He's noticed that that defensive end's outside, so he's abandoning this outside linebacker. This ball's not getting outside. He doesn't have to block him, so instead he's going to cut up inside of that combo block. These two linemen are going to drive that defensive end out, and that H-back is going to get up for the inside linebacker here, and that's going to let this thing go for a pretty nice gain. So, I mentioned this is kind of blocking scheme 101. We know running backs make reads on these run plays. Well, your blocking back can make a read too. USC is expecting to get a combo from the defensive end up to the inside linebacker with the H-back kick out. But when this defensive end pops outside, these two guys are just going to combo from him to the outside linebacker ultimately, while the H-back cuts up inside and takes out that linebacker. So a nice wrinkle that I think is read rather than called. And by the way, this is how USC would usually run this against a 4-man line. So if they think you're going to play a lot of 4-2 or something, then they'll lead that H-back right through up to the linebacker and get exactly this kind of gain against those looks as well. So really cool stuff. We don't talk about the fullback position enough in college football in 2020, but these guys are putting in work out here too. They're reading blocking schemes. They're understanding how the offense works. They're leading up and getting in the way of these inside linebackers, clearing out a hole for their running back to pick up the first down. I love it. All right, good stuff. Let's check out something from a little later on this drive, 5:36 in the second. Here we go. All right, why'd I pull this? Oh, okay, cool. So here we're going to get a really good look at cover 30 cloud because we can see a lot more of the field here. So we can really see the rotation by these safeties to get into that cover 3 structure when this cornerback clouds the flat. So let's just take a look at this live and see what's going on. Okay, the first thing I want to point out is the motion of these safeties to get into that 3-deep look. Right now, it looks like they're playing split safeties. But let's watch this slowly. Watch this guy bail hard outside to the sidelines while this guy comes to the middle. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there if you kind of watch him closely. There we see that one safety bail into the middle. We can see a shadow. The other guy's kind of outside and over the top. So this is a great look at that cover 30 cloud, the deep structure and how that works. And we can get a really good look at why this was so good for defending USC's air raid offense. We've got this cornerback who can cloud the flat. He can take away anything that's inside. BYU is able to drop their strong side linebackers out to cut Pittman and St. Brown. If we look at what's going on down here at the bottom of the screen, they've got that Buzz backer playing curl to flat. So when USC tries to run their quick game stuff like we see right here, BYU is able to get this covered up incredibly well. They got a linebacker here sitting inside of Vaughns. They've got an outside linebacker who can get up to this running back in the flat. They've got linebackers inside of both of these slants, and then they've got a cloud cornerback who could break on anything out. I mean, this cover 30 Buzz is going to be really, really hard to run an air raid quick game against. And they've still got that 3-deep structure over the top because they can get that pressure from their 3-man line. I want to, shameless plug for anyone who might be watching this later. I think a lot of people on here kind of know my work, but USC here is running a really common quick game concept for them. I've talked about this extensively. This exact play as they ran it against Stanford, and then a little bit as they ran it against Utah. So BYU is doing something different here, but if you would be curious about following up on this play and learning a little bit more about it, you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Burke18. I'll try not to bug you too much with the advertisement, but there is a lot more scheme stuff on there at patreon.com/Burke18, including a lot of stuff on this very concept. So that ends my commercial. Let's move on and take a look at second quarter, 5:09. Okay, because this is going to be this is going to be a touchdown. What's going on here? Why'd I pull this play? Oh, okay, perfect. So I've got to get this right back to the start. Good. So on this play, we see a changeup from that kind of cover 30 cloud look. We see more of maybe a cover 4 structure right here, but we see the BYU still playing their 3-man line. It's a little bit hard to see right here. But once again, USC is just using a combo block by their left tackle and left guard, seal the defensive end inside, combo up to this safety here. And then when BYU wants to play with a safety over the top of this slot this slot player, that's actually a tight end or their H-back there, nobody that BYU has is really going to be in position to fill around the edge here. So this is just another way that USC is able to attack those pinch defensive ends that show up in BYU's base kind of 3-4 alignments. I'm going to slow that down. The combo block we're interested in, once again, just the left tackle and left guard sealing off this defensive end, comboing out to that safety to create this off tackle lane for the running back. So more kind of variations on a theme against a slightly different coverage. BYU won't be able to fall in, and USC ties it up at 17 apiece. This play is slowest in a nutshell, I think. Oh yeah, let's go back and check it out. So that was 5:36. My theory is that he plays hero ball, keeps the play alive, tries to force in throws, definitely, tries to thread the needle successfully sometimes. It often works out like this play, but just as often it's catastrophic for USC. So let's take a look at what actually happened. I got so busy talking about the coverage, I ignored the outcome. There he's scrambling around. Oh, yeah. His receiver helps him out a lot here, I believe. So, that's Tyler Vaughn's down here at the bottom. He on this snag concept, the one that I talk about on Patreon, he's running a slant inside while this inside threat runs a corner outside of him, and the running back releases out into the flat. So Vaughn's is running a slant here. He's attacking inside. So this is where Vaughn's is starting. He's starting off bracketed, but then as his quarterback starts to scramble, we see him immediately looking for work. These linebackers get caught with their eyes on Slovis. And he does thread that into a pretty tight space. But a nice job by his receiver there, finding that open space once he gets lost by the linebackers, reacting to the quarterback's role. Good play by him as a wide receiver. Yeah, and sometimes you wonder exactly how dangerous this play is. This definitely could have been an interception, but this buzz backer is getting controlled by that running back. Here, whether it's a good read or not depends on how often he throws a pick on it. If he doesn't throw picks on it that often, then it's a great read. If he throws a couple of picks on stuff like this, then it's a bad read. It's all about his kind of ability and timing. Yeah. Oh, I would have to open up the full game to get to the reverse angle. But yeah, that's a tight window throw. Yeah, I think we can kind of see it there. But yeah, if you've got this broadcast, it's available on YouTube, and you want to go check that out from the reverse angle, you can see exactly how tight it was. But I don't need to go hunting through the full broadcast. Let's see here. Awesome stuff. Okay. Boy, this is fun. All right. Let's take a look. Let's move on to the third quarter, and check out 15 minutes in the third. Here we go. All right. So, actually, let me take a break for halftime. I need to drink some water and, prevent my throat from drying out completely from all this talking. All right. A quick question. Does my cursor have lag with my audio? Because I'm noticing that on a lot of replays. I don't know if it seems like the cursor is off as I'm highlighting things. I think that's something I could fix with an audio delay for next time. Yeah. I'm going to go refill my glass of water. But then I'll be back for second half. Oh, awesome. It's working out this week. Good. My stream health looks pretty good, so maybe my computer's just having a better day. Yeah, and some of those, the cursor got off pretty much, so I had to figure out how to download stuff off of YouTube and then just adjust the audio track back by a couple seconds. And maybe the replays, I could probably get them syncing up a little better. All right, we are back for half two. We've seen a lot of the main themes, especially, really that BYU cover 30 look, I think is probably the most important takeaway from this game, as well as we've seen some cool stuff about how to attack the various zone coverages with curl flat technique and things like that. We've seen using an H-back against 3-4 looks to kick out the outside linebacker and create that off-tackle lane. So we've seen a lot of really good stuff here so far today. All right. Let's get into the second half. Okay, awesome. So we've mentioned that I've mentioned that USC played a lot of cover one or a lot of man. They did start mixing in more zone, including some split safety stuff in the second half, and that's definitely worth talking about. Here, it's going to kind of take away this passing concept that BYU is trying to run. So here they're playing. I think this is kind of a switch smash kind of thing. So the inside receivers are going to run out into the flats, and then the outside receivers, I believe, are releasing inside to run corner routes to break back outside. So we're getting kind of a smash concept, but we're switching up the receivers that are running each part of the high-low. So here, USC's gotten out of their cover one. We've seen them having some trouble with BYU's slot receivers when they played man. So the nice thing about going to this split safety look is that gets a safety over the top of those slot receivers and takes that away. And specifically, this quarters look here is going to be really good against that switch smash concept that I'm talking about. So here, this outside receiver at the top of the screen is going to run the corner route, and the inside receiver is going to run out to the flat. And we can kind of see how this develops. As this guy goes to run his corner, he's got a safety over the top. This isn't a totally isolated press one-on-one scenario. The cornerback's going to be able to squat in the flat to take away that inside receiving threat. And so this is a nice zone changeup. Notice here that the cornerback is also going to be able to bail underneath the deep route here to take that away. So here USC is just going with a split safety look, playing a little bit of zone and taking away some of these targeting some of these passing concepts that Utah's spread passing attack wants to go after. So just a nice coverage switch up, that cover 4 look. Split safeties right there. That'll come back a little bit later in the game. Actually, it'll come back on the very next play. So we saw there it worked really well for taking away the passing game. Here we see the problems that can pop up with this. On the last play, I didn't point out the bottom of the screen. Could you look at the very next play? Oh, perfect. We're on the exact same page. Exactly. Great minds think alike. So what we can point out here is that we just saw USC using this kind of split safety look with great effect against the passing game. So why does BYU, they're going to rip off a nice run here. Why does that happen? Well, we see it's that same look, split safeties right here. And an important part about the wide side of the field is that in this quarters look, USC is going to take, I don't know if this is a nickel back, it's probably a nickel back, and line him up with outside leverage on the slot receiver. And so he is going to be the flat defender. So this cornerback, I've called, this is quarters. This cornerback's technically a deep sideline defender, but here he's playing press. That's fine. He can still defend the deep sidelines from a press. So with this corner pressing this receiver and potentially getting run off by him, this nickelback has to line up outside of the slot receiver in order to defend the flat. And then the safety here is going to be responsible for covering this guy if he goes vertical. So we can see the structure if we look a little bit more. So right here, as the ball snapped, we see this nickelback widening to play outside of this guy because he's got to defend the flat with the cornerback potentially getting run off. And then the safety is playing over the top of this slot receiver. So that's kind of the 2-on-1 structure that USC is playing here. So that's a part of it. That's not the whole thing, obviously. That's a piece of it. But what that does is when you play that coverage structure, that opens up this very nice lane right here if the running back's able to get outside and off tackle. So if the running back's able to get outside with the nickelback wide and the safety over the top, there is a very nice lane right here. Let me go back and remind myself what's happening in the front here. I think we're getting a linebacker mistake. Yep. Okay. So if you look at the run fits here, USC's in their 4-2. They're playing cover 4 behind it. So this defensive end is going to be in the C gap outside of the offensive tackle. As he does, it looks like USC's got this nose tackle lined up in between the center and the left guard. So this linebacker, number 10, needs to be responsible for the B gap between the left guard and the left tackle. Yeah, exactly right. So this linebacker should be responsible for the B gap between the left guard and the left tackle. We're going to see he's going to end up all the way backside of the center. So when that happens, the left guard is going to be able to seal off the nose tackle inside. The left tackle is going to kick out the defensive end. This linebacker is going away, and that's going to open up a huge B gap lane for the running back. These secondary players are wide because of this quarter structure, and it's not going to be good for USC. So let's slow this down. Keep an eye on these three guys right here, and especially this linebacker falling backside. Okay. So there, defensive end getting kicked out, which we expect. He's in the C gap. Nose tackle getting sealed by the left guard, who's already lined up outside of him. We expect that. He's taken away that inside gap, so he's fine. But this linebacker's the problem. He needs to be between the left guard and the left tackle. He falls all the way backside, outside the center, opening up this play side lane right through that B gap. Secondary players they're gonna get shaken a little bit there by some nice running by that running back, but they're starting this play from a tough position. Yeah, so that's not a great run fit by that linebacker, unless there was some kind of like stunt or gap exchange going on with the nose. Maybe the nose was supposed to do something different, but I think that linebacker was probably supposed to be in that play side B gap. Let's watch that one more time. The gap's developing between the left tackle and the left guard. I know you were asking me off air about linebacker play with Orlando coming in from USC. So you're thinking that these linebackers are going to have trouble playing in that kind of scheme? I'll be curious to see what kind of coaching they get. I will say, I mean, Texas had some dudes on their defense. When you look at the Utah game and you just watch Texas's defensive line versus Utah's offensive line, or their linebackers attacking the line of scrimmage, like Texas had some players that were young, but they were really talented and really physically gifted. And so, I mean, the talent issue is only going to make any schematic issues worse. You know, Texas had players. They didn't look awful. They didn't look like they didn't know what they were doing. Although maybe they were just playing well because Orlando had already been fired. But yeah, I mean, I think I do not understand the defensive coordinator hire from USC. We'll see. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. So I haven't watched enough Orlando. I mean, I know a lot of 3-3 teams will get into that 4-3 look by shifting the line and putting a stand-up linebacker as kind of the fourth lineman. Like Arizona State's was a 3-3 team that did that a lot. And a lot of these kind of hybrid nickel defenses will get into 4-2 looks that way. I don't know if Texas was doing that or if they were playing with truly different personnel on the field. I don't know if you caught that. But yeah, I meant to look a little bit more at Texas's defense in preparation for this, but I didn't have time to get to it. Yeah, and it's interesting because Nivar was calling the plays in that game, and now he's at USC too, so you assume that he and Orlando are going to be two peas in a pod, kind of working together and running the same kind of stuff they ran at Texas. But if he ran something radically different in the bowl game and kind of departed from Orlando's scheme, then that's really interesting. I watched the Texas-Georgia game too, but that's all I've watched of that defense. There's something I want to talk about later on this drive, 8:43 in the third. I think that's I might have. How important is this? This isn't critical. We're going to skip that one. Okay, let's check out another play. So this is going to be a play where USC is forced to punt. And we're gonna take a look at what kind of had to happen for that run game that we've been talking about for USC to work, and what did it look like when it succeeded, and what did it look like when it failed. It's a nice compare and contrast, starting with 7:22 in the third. Let's see. 7:22 in the third. Here we're looking at. Okay, so this is going to be a play where USC is able to run the ball really well. And this is going to set up some other plays where BYU is able to shut down the run pretty well. So this is one of those back and forths that I like to highlight in these live casts. So here BYU, they're going with what I'd call a 34 wide front. All I mean by wide is that the defensive ends, instead of pinching inside the offensive tackles as we've seen, in 34 wide, those defensive ends are going to pop outside, play outside of those offensive tackles. The other piece of that is that the nose tackle's lined up heads up over the center. And on this play, what I want us to look at is we see the outside linebacker or nickelback. I'm not 100% sure what that guy is. He's lined up in the Sam spot. He is out here pretty much heads up over the number 3 receiver. So he's going to be able to get blocked. He's not going to be a huge factor here. So we see, if we look to the left of center, USC's got 2 blockers, the left guard and left tackle. And so BYU, if this Sam or nickel Sam is out of the picture, BYU only really has 3 guys, you would think, who could get to the play side to outnumber these 2 blockers. Remember, defense always wants to outnumber the offense's blockers by 1. They never want to be even if they can help it. So if we look at this, we got two blockers. Who are the 3 guys who could outnumber them? Well, defensive end, inside linebacker, nose tackle. So a lot of this play just hinges on, does this nose tackle fight play side and become the 3rd defender to outnumber these 2 guys, or does he get reached by this center? Does he get forced backside, leaving BYU with only 2 defenders? And here he's going to get reached. So I'm going to slow that down. We're watching the block of the center on the nose tackle. We talked bad on the center earlier because he had some trouble, especially in pass protection. But here, this nose tackle is going to fall backside. The center's not even blocking him. Never mind. So this is a scheme issue for BYU, not an execution issue for USC. Okay, so I'm going to modify what I said a little bit. The nose tackle is just going to fall backside of his own volition, and that's going to leave BYU with only 2 play side defenders for USC's 2 blockers. Offenses, even that means they win. When this guy falls backside, what that does is it lets the right guard overtake him. Okay, so now the right guard can block the nose, and that frees up the center to get up to this weak side linebacker here and really open up a nice lane between these 2 linebackers. So the key, though, is that this nose tackle is falling backside, which clears the center to block this linebacker and allows this nose tackle to get blocked by the right guard who's all the way backside of him. So let's watch this develop. Okay. So now that nose tackle's backside, the right guard's on him. The center is able to release up to the backside linebacker. And then these 2 guys can combo from the defensive end up to the mic. By the way, nice job by number 29 here. He's attacking outside. Let's actually run that back a little bit. The linebacker here is following that running back's path. He does a nice job of selling that outside run, forcing that linebacker to attack, and then really nice job of just stopping and coming back into that lane kind of behind that center's block on the backside linebacker. So the key here, though, as we've seen from a numbers standpoint, when this nose tackle goes away, it gives USC 3 blockers to block these 3 defenders. That's a win for the offense. Some nice running by the running back, stopping on a dime, getting downhill into that seam. Turns this into a big play for USC. So that's what this looks like when USC's running game succeeded. That's what it looked like when they were doing well. Let's now check out some plays where they struggled a little bit and talk about why they had to punt here in the 3rd quarter. So we're going to go to 6:44. All right, so why is USC punting instead of scoring points here? Let's watch this live. All right, and we see an immediate difference if we focus. So first of all, this isn't 34 wide. The defensive ends are back to their pinched alignments, their more typical 3-4 alignments. But here we want to watch this nose tackle. Remember on the last play, he fell backside and got picked up by the guard. But here he's going to fight play side and try to control that center. And that's going to give BYU that 3rd play side defender that they need to outnumber the right guard and the right tackle. So watch this nose tackle. He's critical to this play. Huge difference from the last play. Okay, so he's really 2-gapping on that center. He's controlling him pretty well. He could fall off in either direction. And here he's closing up any kind of play side gap, forcing the running back to cut back here. Then meanwhile on the backside, so the running back does cut back. He does get clear of that nose tackle. But, USC did have some trouble on the offensive line. We're watching this left tackle right here. He's going to try to cut this defensive end. He's going to fail pretty badly. All right, so there's that cut. He goes to the ground. He's trying to get the defensive end on the ground. Defensive end's able to keep his feet, prevent this from cutting back outside, right? So he's able to force this back up inside. And when he does that, when this defensive end can ensure that this won't cut all the way back. Okay, here the defensive end's able to ensure that this won't cut all the way back. And what that means is that, remember, the center is occupied with the nose tackle. So the left guard here is really stuck 2-on-1 with the two inside linebackers. So they're just going to fit on either side of him, right? We got one inside linebacker inside of him, another inside linebacker outside of him. There's not a lot of space for that running back to get to. And USC brings up third down here. Yeah, I've got the next play up too. Maybe I should have just started right there. So that's 6-17. Same kind of deal. Let's see here. Let's check it out. Okay, so yeah, we see that same 3-4 look. This time, maybe one defensive end is a little bit wide, playing maybe a 5 technique. Defensive end at the bottom still looks pinched. Let's see. This is probably, oh yeah, both defensive ends are pinching there. Yeah, that's an even better example because they don't pick up this first down on 3rd and 2. Which is rough. So here, once again, the nose tackle controlling that center, really shutting down the play side lane. So there we go. I mean, there is no space for the running back to get to there. They've also got this outside linebacker who's playing off tackle, so this ball isn't going to be able to bounce either. And then going on the backside, ooh, yeah, right tackle's running into trouble here. So this right tackle, he's at a disadvantage on this play because the defensive end's already lined up inside of him. This right tackle is going to try to dig that guy out and kick him outside, opening up a cutback lane, but he's not going to be able to do that. So now we want to watch this defensive end. He's just going to do a great job of maintaining his inside position on that right tackle and not getting forced outside. Any minute now. There we go. Okay, so he gets hands on him, and he's able to take away that inside gap that the running back's targeting. That's ultimately what stops this from being a first down and forces the punt. Running back's knee's already down there as he lays out, so USC has to kick it. Yeah, that's a good example showing the same basic problems. And yeah, this is when USC struggled to move the ball. This aspect of the run game was a big part of it. Success. Yeah, they're gonna bring back the RPOs. Let me see if there's even an RPO on this one. So there is an RPO on this one. I think the reason I included the last one first was because I believe that there's actually not an RPO here. Yeah, so if we look at this one, I mentioned earlier that after those near interceptions, I noticed that USC went away from the RPO game to a more straightforward run game. So if we go back and look at this second to last play that we've watched, watch all these receivers. They're just straight up blocking on 2nd and 6-ish. So there's actually no RPO component here, which is really out of character for a lot of these offenses. So these guys are all blocking across the board. There's no route or screen at all. This is just a straight up run. On the next play, they do run a little RSO, a run screen option. So there is going to be a smoke screen to Tyler Vaughn's down here at the bottom. So, but yeah, the interplay between when are they running RPOs and when are they just blocking straight up, really interesting, especially in light of the near interception that Slovis threw on the RPO earlier. But yeah, it is going to pay off. I wonder if they needed these straightforward runs to actually force that, though, because I think when BYU, when they're playing zone like this, we've seen, all these terms, buzz in the flat and stuff like that, ability to stretch linebackers between multiple defenders. I think that to a certain extent, they could have used the RPOs to attack those guys. I've actually got a lot to say about attacking those guys with both RPOs and other things. So maybe I should shut up about this play and move on to some of those so we can really get a good look at what you're talking about. Okay, good. Oh yeah, there was a really cool kind of scheme nerd thing that I want to talk about at 2:35 in the third. BYU changes their box look a bit in the fourth. Oh yeah, let me know specifically when you see something that we're looking at. Yeah, they did a little bit. They did a few different things. It was an interesting back and forth. But yeah, let me know what you're talking about as we run through some of these. Okay. So we've seen USC playing kind of a split safety, like two-man kind of coverage almost. So if we look right here, there's one receiver that we can't see at the bottom of the screen. We could see everybody else. So USC's got kind of a typical 7-man box of a split safety coverage. They're going to have a cornerback out here and 2 safeties over the top. And it looks like they're manning up on all of these receivers. So this is that split safety kind of 2-man coverage that we saw earlier. Now, this might not seem like a big play, but I think it's really cool because I think that the reason USC shuts down the run here and ultimately forces a turnover on downs is I think that BYU's miscalculated USC's response to motion and shifting, one of the most interesting, most under-discussed parts of the game. So I'm going to nerd out about this a little bit. So on this play, BYU's thinking, okay, if this is 2-man, right, if USC is manned up on these receivers, well, if we take this receiver and run him across on motion, what's going to happen? Everybody knows this. If you put a receiver in motion and it's man coverage, then the man defender over him is going to run with him. And so I think that that's what BYU is expecting here. But USC, instead of locking onto that and running that guy across, they're actually just going to bump the coverage. So if we look at what happens right here, that guy goes in motion. This guy signals to the linebacker on the other side that he needs to bump out. I believe that they're bumping into a zone thing here. They might have been in zone originally, but they're definitely bumping to a zone. I don't think they're asking this linebacker to cover a wide receiver. But I think that BYU is expecting this guy to run with this receiver, but instead he bumps, and that ends up being critical here. Right, so he bumps, then this guy on the opposite side is able to match the number of that motion player with a safety over the top to account for this tight end. So USC is doing a nice job adjusting to motion and shifting. I gave him credit for that a little bit before. Now, the reason that this matters, the reason that I think BYU made a mistake here is because of what they're setting up. So if we look at what they're doing with this motion, they're using it to run the option to the right. Okay, so the running back is getting into a pitch relationship with the quarterback, and they're attacking this weak side defensive end who's unblocked. The quarterback will attack that defensive end. If he sits on the quarterback, then the quarterback will pitch it out to the running back. If he widens for the running back, the quarterback will keep it. Now, the problem is, for BYU, is that they're kind of expecting this guy to go away. And maybe they get what they want. Maybe they wanted to bump him back into the box here. But the problem is that when this guy doesn't go away, all of a sudden this defensive end is no longer isolated 2-on-1 on the option, right? They've still got this, I believe that's a DB playing outside. He's lined up outside of this right tackle. There is no way that BYU is going to be able to seal this guy down inside. And so what that means is that as they run the option, right? I mean, that guy's already starting outside. He's going to be hard for that right tackle to block. So as BYU goes to run the option, the defensive end can become the quarterback player, and that defensive back the BYU thought they were getting rid of is out there on the edge to be a pitch player. He's able to run this down and prevent it from going for a big gain. So, as I mentioned, that was going to be kind of a little bit of a scheme nerdy thing. I love this here. I think that BYU anticipated the wrong motion response. And USC does a nice job of just kind of bumping it, zoning it off, and getting themselves that extra defender against the option. I love that. The little stuff. I think that that's some of the coolest stuff in football. All right, let's jump now to 16 seconds in the third quarter. What are we looking at here? We're going to look at USC's touchdown drive to take the lead. So good stuff for the Trojans is on the way. Here we go. Why did I pull this play? Okay. Actually, we're going to skip this one. This is that play I talk about on my Patreon again, where I did my little commercial. So we're going to get snag up at the top of the screen. So a slant, a corner route, a flat route, and then slants coming from the bottom. And we're just going to see BYU's cover 3 cloud taking that away really nicely. More Slovis hero ball. Yeah. And he does keep his composure while he scrambles around. I mean, he's just a true freshman, which is really, he's got a lot of time to develop when it comes to those reads. Some of those deep throws he makes are outstanding. But yeah, here he's just going to scramble, try to pick up the first down, get tackled. But I mean, it's going to be hard to complete this quick game concept with all these defenders dropping. With this cover 30 cloud, all these defenders dropping out. It's going to be hard to get the quick game going against this. Stay tuned for the last interception of the game. All right. Okay, now let's take a look at that RPO. It's almost exactly what happens against Iowa. Iowa, I looked at Iowa on my Patreon too. Iowa, were they doing 8-man coverages, or they were kind of like they were kind of inverting their safeties a little bit, almost like a robber, if I remember correctly. So they were getting those extra guys in coverage by running kind of a quarters look that almost turned into a kind of cover zero in terms of numbers inverting down. And to go back and review my notes on that one, I made that a while ago. Let's check out 1436 in the fourth. Here we go. Spinning down, then Slovis wouldn't throw it away. Yeah, I mean, it is true that we're not getting a lot of throwaways here. He does try to keep the plays alive and kind of keep his composure. USC gets a lot of yardage off of scrambles, honestly. Like that is a not insignificant part of their offensive success. Slovis kind of improvising. Let's see here. Okay, so we're looking at 1436, running zone away from JU, chases the run, giving out this. Oh, okay, perfect. So we're kind of returning to a common theme here. Here, USC is returning to the RPO game. Hithloday mentioned that. On this play, they're running away from this buzz linebacker. I believe they're buzzing the flat here. Yeah, here they're bailing out that cornerback and buzzing the flat with that outside linebacker. And so they're just creating conflict for him by running an RPO away from him, encouraging him to chase the run, and then running a slant to Pittman outside of him, encouraging him to sit wide. They're really trying to pull him in two directions. And that lets USC, once they start going back to these RPOs with more consistency, to hit some of these throws to Pittman in the RPO game. And yeah, I mean, all that running, definitely there's a good potential that was setting this up. Although this guy probably shouldn't be chasing too much. He should probably be sitting on the slant. So he's definitely been impacted by all the runs that he's seen going on. Oh, something else that USC is doing here that impacts this guy to set up this RPO. This is something that I don't think I'd noted before, but they're taking this H-back, and instead of using him to block the nickel Sam that's out here, they're bringing him on a solid block across to kick out the end. So this guy's got a little bit of pressure to dive in as a run fit player. Keep an eye on this H-back right here as he comes across. I think that's definitely going to impact the read for this outside linebacker as he jumps down, attacks the line of scrimmage, freeing up this inside space for Pittman to catch that RPO throw. So we're in the fourth quarter now. Things are a little bit more desperate. USC needs to move the ball. It's only 17-17. They start going back to that RPO game more than they had been. Okay, let's go to 13:44 in the fourth. Doesn't this look like a box response to the third quarter running? Well, we're still in the 3-4. Which part of it are you wondering about? They might be in different personnel. I say I don't have BYU's depth chart in front of me, but they might be in different personnel. But we've still got that 3-4 look. We've got those pinched 4-eye defensive ends. We've got those two inside linebackers, outside linebackers walked out on the edges. I think that unless I'm mistaking what you're, the outside linebacker crashing. That's a good question. So is this a blitz or something? Is this an actual change? I mean, USC hadn't been running the RPOs, so we haven't. So because there were no RPOs, I hadn't really been noting his response. It's conceivable. Oh, okay, cool. Let's see here. Let's check out 13:44. Yeah, so one of the keys here, one of the big bits that we've talked about throughout here is that BYU's been running a ton of 8-man coverages, just bring 3, rush 8. Part of the reason that they're doing that is because, as Stanford saw, as maybe Utah saw in some cases, when you get that 4th or 5th player into the pass rush, you really open yourselves up to USC's quick passing game and to their RPO game. So we're going to see a good example of that right here. Okay, so we've been seeing BYU. Remember what I've been saying about this linebacker? I've been calling him a buzz backer, with the cornerback playing over the top, linebacker buzzing the flat. That was the thing that was designed to take away all these quick outs to Pittman, because the cornerback could play over the top, and then this linebacker could widen and kind of undercut the outside breaking route to Pittman and maybe get hands on it. On this play, BYU's finally going to make a change. Probably because of field position. It's 17-17. They've got USC 2nd and 6 near midfield. They definitely don't want to give up a field goal. So finally, after playing 8-man coverages all game, they're bringing this outside linebacker off the edge. And what's that going to do? Well, when that guy's not dropping underneath this route as a buzz backer, when this cornerback is the sole guy out here, that just opens up these speed outs to Pittman, who with that great, who's able to kind of get that, set up that manageable third down there. So once again, when you take away that buzz backer and don't play that, I mean, they're still only rushing 3, but the key is where they're rushing them from, right? They're getting rid of that weak side flat defender that they've been using for most of the game. All of a sudden, Pittman's able to get going with those speed outs again. So when you ask why are teams running all these bringing these 3-man rushes, running these 8-man coverages, that kind of plays exactly why. USC will do that to you all game if you let them. Okay. And speaking of Michael Pittman, those of you who remember this game know what's coming next, I'm sure. USC didn't manage to throw deep a lot here, but they did. Where's the play? They didn't manage to throw deep a lot, because remember, BYU's play, this isn't the play. I need to find this one because it's a great play and USC fans are going to love it. So 10:57 in the fourth. I'm going to go back to the full broadcast for this one. 10:57 in the fourth. All right, there. Okay, cool. All right, we're back. We got it. Okay, so remember that BYU's been playing a lot of BYU's been playing a lot of cover 3. They've been playing either cloud cover 3 with a cornerback in the flat and a safety over the top, or just straight up cover 3 with a cornerback playing the deep third and a buzz linebacker. So because of that, when you look at these off cornerbacks or bail cornerbacks, you can understand why USC didn't throw deep a lot or didn't get the deep ball going too much. On this play, they are kind of just going to say screw it, and they're going to throw to Michael Pittman. The cornerback doesn't really bite on anything. I assume that there was a double move. There usually is, or at least a stutter step or something when Pittman runs these routes. The cornerback doesn't bite on it too much as far as I can see, but this is just... And a really great play by Pittman. The focus there to kind of fight off that defender, keep an eye on the ball, lay out for it, walking backwards for the touchdown. I mean, that's, it's easy to see why he got drafted. I've liked Michael Pittman. I and everyone else have liked Mike. I liked Michael Pittman before it was cool, though. I liked him back when USC was in the Pac-12 championship against Stanford. So, but I mean, he's outstanding, and Pac-12 fans should be glad he's not here anymore. Although Tyler Vaughn's is still pretty good. But yeah, this is just talent, against an off corner, playing physically, making that grab for a touchdown. That's a pretty clutch play by your senior leader in the receiving corps to put USC up 24-17. Really nice play there. Not a bad throw by Slovis either, actually. I don't love the leverage with that cornerback right there. Throwing back inside and against this kind of alignment is potentially risky. But when you've got Pittman, you've got confidence in it. It's not the most obvious read, but he dropped it in there. You got to give him credit for that. I mean, he's got great downfield accuracy on a lot of these plays, and that confidence really pays off for him right here. Yeah, exactly. Reestablish. I mean, yeah, this. Absolutely outstanding play on a look that shouldn't have worked. Yeah, because he steps out of bounds right about there, but it's due to contact. Reestablishing himself, leaning back in, falling down. It's a touchdown that shouldn't have happened, but did. Both guys, the quarterback and the wide receiver, both played that about as well as they could have given the look that they were seeing. All right. let's move on. So BYU is going to come back. They're going to kick a field goal to tie it up. So 10:05 in the fourth. Here we go. Now I'm looking here. Yes. BYU's down by a touchdown now. Okay. So this is setting up a field goal drive that's then going to set up the go-ahead drive. So here we go. Oh, okay. So this is another one of those motion things which I'm kind of into. If we look at this right now, we see BYU. We see that USC looks like they're in maybe that cover one look that we've been talking about. So they've got, three down linemen. It looks like a stand-up end out here on the edge, two linebackers, a bunch of defensive backs. It looks like they're playing with one deep safety. Maybe he's cheating in to put him in more of a cover zero against the run here. But when BYU goes in motion, USC is actually going to bump into split safety zone coverage. And I believe that that's going to confuse the quarterback a little bit. Yeah, I mean, he ends up, well, the linebacker didn't play this that well. So USC, really kind of bumping back out into a split safety coverage against this motion, I think is just kind of interesting. My sense is that I don't see that a ton. And number 26. So that ultimately is the problem. You've kind of hit the nail on the head. If we watch this guy right here, is that motion comes across. Remember, we saw a play earlier where a linebacker's job was to bump out with that motion and to add that extra number when that guy comes across. But we see here, he's just not going to move across with that motion at all. He's coming back inside. I don't really know what he's looking for, but he lets that motion receiver outflank him. It's a game of steps. He tried to recover a little bit, but that was a definite mistake coming from the linebacker position in coverage. And these are the kind of things that I worry about with Orlando, because he asks his linebackers to do some crazy things. Like if you look at the alignment that they're operating from to defend certain routes, this is a route where that linebacker should have been able to bump out and maintain his leverage and avoid getting outflanked. If you were in a worse position, which is sometimes going to happen with Orlando's pressure packages, then this could have been even worse. Yeah, just getting outflanked. Nice effort to try and recover. I'll give him that. All right, so that puts so BYU is going to kick a field goal. That's going to make this 20-24. We don't need to watch that though. We've got two plays on their next touchdown drive that I think are interesting. So we're going to go to the fourth quarter, 6:38, I believe, is what we're looking at. Yeah. Okay. Which play is this? Oh, this is the huge completion. Okay, yeah. I wanted to talk about this because this gives me the opportunity to talk about scramble rules on this play. This receiver at the bottom of the screen is going to be, pretty open. I know that when that happens for my team in a game that I'm watching, you wonder how could a guy possibly get that open? So for Trojan fans out there who might have been frustrated by this, I want to kind of put some context and explain how this ridiculous scramble around, throw the ball however many yards downfield, how this actually happened. So the key is, we see here, the quarterback drops back. BYU's got, it looks like some kind of three verticals concept going on. USC's running cover three of their own. This is definitely a zone coverage in the middle. They're pressing on the outside, which doesn't preclude zone. I still think this is a cover three structure for various reasons. But BYU is just running three verticals, 1, 2 from the tight end, 3 from the receiver up at the top. And so USC should have this free safety playing in the deep middle of the field. So it's kind of a matchup cover three as opposed to your classic, canonical 3 deep zone shell, but it's still operating on zone principles. We can see that with the 4 guys in the middle of the coverage. So the quarterback, he's got that 3 verticals. USC's in cover 3. They're taking all of that away. They've got these zone dropping linebackers underneath to take away any crossing element coming from this tight end. So USC's called a zone coverage, and so far it's worked out pretty well. Now, Let's see how that nose tackle gets the pressure. Oh, yeah. So the nose tackle right here is kind of going to have his way with, I believe, the right guard. Let's just watch this right here. The nose, what he's going to do to get this pressure. So right here, he engages with the right guard, right? Right guard's blocking him, trying to wash him down, keep him away from his quarterback. And just watch, there's going to be a nasty pull move right here. That nose tackle, he's just got his jersey. He's just going to yank him down and discard him, knock him into the ground. Pretty good. Boom. There's that kind of violent tug. Clears himself with the right guard and gets that pressure. The quarterback does that, which there's no analysis for. But then the problem for USC is that this is the end result. So how on earth did this happen? And especially how did this happen with this deep post safety here? You know, if we look at where this gets caught, right, what happened to that safety who should have been right there? Right, remember that deep middle safety plan? So the key here is it's, you know, in a certain sense, the pressure here might have been worse for USC than no pressure, because let's talk about what happens. We got this three verticals concept. What happens when the quarterback on the left tackle versus Drake Jackson? Oh yeah, he's got some shoulder pad there. I hadn't even noticed that. Yeah, so maybe a little bit of holding by the left tackle as well. Maybe that would have led to a sack instead of this massive completion. But at the point where your quarterback starts running backwards away from where he's going to throw the ball, at this point, both teams are in scramble drill. Okay, so receivers are doing whatever they're coached to do in scramble drill. That means two completely opposite things depending on what team you're on. It either means go deep, run as fast as you can down the sidelines, or that means work back to your quarterback, back toward the line of scrimmage, depending on how teams coach it. Looking at what BYU did, the receiver who catches it probably did the go deep option. But once your quarterback is in this position, what's happening with your coverage is that everybody needs to plaster because you're in zone. You know, the quarterback's trying to escape the pocket. Receivers are no longer in their routes that are called. They're just trying to run across the field with the quarterback and get open for him. So at that point, everybody on the defense is going to yell plaster. People are going to lock onto whoever's around them. And that's going to be what impacts this free safety right here. So if we go right here, we see, remember this is three verticals, tight ends going vertical, free safeties playing in the deep middle, okay? So he's the guy that's being threatened by that tight end. When the quarterback starts scrambling, everybody else plaster, 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 the free safety is going to lock onto that tight end. And if we pause this right here, we see that. So here's the tight end, and here's that free safety who's plastered him, because that's what you're supposed to do in the scramble drill. What they're not counting on is the quarterback doing that ridiculous magic that he did to split the entire defensive line and get in position to chuck this downfield. The thing that I don't understand is I don't understand this cornerback. I don't understand why he wasn't running with this guy from the bottom of the screen. I don't know if he fell down or maybe if there was some physicality at the point where this guy broke off on the scramble drill. You know, maybe, who knows? I don't believe that there was a replay of this. But the reason, at least, that this free safety isn't in the middle of the field to take this away is because of that scramble drill and because he's plastering that tight end down here. So that's how that guy got so open, plus whatever the heck happened to get him free of that cornerback, which I don't have an angle on the replay. So, you know, just a nice little tidbit about scramble drill and how that can, you know, if the quarterback can get away, in this case, that created a huge play for BYU. Let's check out 551. Okay, this is BYU's last touchdown. No, that's not it. Here we go. Okay. This is a cool play called by BYU. And definitely worth talking about. So USC here, we see they're back in their single high look. They're back in what looks like probably man coverage. Key here is that BYU is going empty, which if they did a little bit, but I don't think they did it a ton. So BYU's going empty here on this play. USC's playing single high. They're manned up. So BYU's got all 5 eligible receivers split out wide. That means USC's going to need 5 defenders split out to match them, plus 6 for their free safety, leaving them with only 5 guys in the box. This is kind of exactly what BYU wants, because what they're doing here is they're running a quarterback draw. So remember, if the offense's blockers are even, then the offense feels like they've won. This is 2nd and 9. BYU's emptied out the backfield. They know they've got 5 on 5 in the box because they've gone empty and spread everybody out. To top this off and make matters a little bit worse, on this play, USC's vacated. They could have still had one second level defender playing linebacker here, but they're bringing this edge pressure down here to try and get an overload on the right guard and right tackle. And so they're trying to get some pressure to heat things up for the quarterback on 2nd and 9. Maybe they think that if they can flush him out to the left, he's less dangerous or something. For whatever reason, they're bringing the overload from the right side, and that vacates this second level. So when the offensive line blocks this draw, you can see the lane right there. It's almost a little bit too easy. And then some problematic tackling from the secondary is going to let the quarterback into the end zone. But a nice use. If USC is going to play man with a safety deep, they're going to leave you with that 5-on-5 box, run that quarterback draw straight up the middle. This is the first time that they did this particular play, if I'm not mistaken. It was a really good time to call it. It obviously made a huge difference for him. I don't like this red zone defensive structure from Pendergast because they never went away from it. Oh, I haven't actually watched the Oregon's offense against USC. I watched the flip side of that, but yeah. So what was Arroyo doing? Was he doing this empty stuff as well, or was he throwing fades? I can imagine a fade to the sidelines, away from that deep middle safety being a potential problem here. Oh, RPOs. Okay. Like slant RPOs? But it's the C1 blitzing. Oh, okay, cool. Gotcha. I'll have to check that out. Oh, man. Yeah, USC, well, not USC. Clancy Pendergast has always been someone he'd rather solve a problem with a sledgehammer than a scalpel. He wants to load up the box and bring pressure. Actually, didn't do it that as much in this game as he has historically. Sometimes he, in trying to go with all this man stuff, he exposes himself quite a bit, especially with these pressures here. 2nd and 9, he's trying to back him up. Yeah, I think there's no real need for aggression here because even if BYU kicks as long as you keep BYU from kicking the field goal or you hold them to a field goal, you're still winning and in the driver's seat here. So this is probably a little bit more aggressive they need to be with that blitz. I'll need to check out that Oregon game. Okay, so that's that. USC is going to go down and tie things up. This is an exciting game right here at the end. So let's go to 5:31 in the 4th. Here we go. All right. Good. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about that buzz line. Well, I've talked a lot about that buzz linebacker on the flat. It's pretty much the only thing I talked about in this game. So here, though, we're going to see USC controlling that guy in a slightly different way. So we've seen when he blitzed, they can throw the out to take advantage of that. We've seen they could run a curl flat at him to force him to widen and let this outside receiver run a curl to the inside of his cornerback. Here we're going to see a nice RPO way to attack that outside linebacker. So here USC is going to run counter right at that guy. So they're pulling the left guard and pulling the H-back across the formation. They're forcing that guy to fall in. I'm going to slow this down. They're forcing that guy to fall in against the run. So here's the pulling left guard. Here's the pulling H-back. This guy is your force player. He's got to fit outside of that. Actually, he doesn't even really do it. He just kind of sits. But anyway, the key is that when they run counter, really it's these linebackers in the middle of the field that are the most impacted, I guess. But when they run counter, BYU's linebackers are attacking run. The buzz backer has to play outside, play as the force player outside of the kickout block. These linebackers are attacking the line of scrimmage because they need to defeat the down blocks coming from the play side offensive line. And what this does is open up space for this curl coming right behind it. So Slovis does a nice job of reading that. I actually want to take a look at what he's reading. With that cover 3 cornerback playing outside and over the top, he doesn't have a chance. And Tyler Vaughn's is pretty good at getting separation in these situations here. What is Slovis reading? Yeah, I believe he's reading one of these two linebackers. It's hard. I think he's probably reading this inside linebacker. He sees him sitting instead of dropping, and he's able to throw it. So once again, going back to the RPO game after a couple of scares early on in the game, work out really well for USC. This is why they want to run so many RPOs, because they can really put those linebackers in conflict and open up the passing game behind them. All right, so that's starting to get him down. Nice. And one more play that I wanted to talk about was 3:30 in the fourth, which is right here. Okay, let's watch this live. Another good way to control this buzz. I believe we're controlling the buzz backer on this play again. Yeah, okay. So we haven't seen too much of this from USC to the weak side. So remember, on this play, I think BYU is just playing a standard cover 3 rotation, but they've got that buzz backer, or cover 30, I should say. They've got that buzz backer up at the top of the field. We haven't really seen them control that guy with this particular route concept, but something that USC runs a ton is that they'll get 2 receivers. They'll take the outside guy and run him on an out, and take the inside guy and run him on an in, and Slovis is just going to read this linebacker and see which guy he takes. So if we look at how this develops, we see, okay, here comes the slot receiver trying to get inside. That's, going to create a lot of traffic at the very least for this linebacker who's kind of sitting there. Now he's unable to widen and get out to that out route. So we saw, on an earlier play that when this guy blitzed, it opened up the out because they didn't have a guy to drop to the out. But here USC's creating that benefit. They don't need to rely on this guy blitzing or not blitzing. They're creating that benefit by using this slot receiver to take that guy out, opening up the out that they love to hit so much underneath this bailing cornerback. So this is a nice way that USC is able to attack with a quick game that 8-man coverage that BYU loves to run. Yeah, that's a nice little adjustment, a nice way to attack that weak side buzz linebacker. Okay, so that got USC into field goal range. They kicked the field goal. BYU got the ball first in overtime. They didn't really go anywhere, but when you start on the 25 or whatever, you don't have to go very far to kick a field goal. So they knock it through, go up 3, and that brings us to the saddest moment of the game if you're a Trojan fan, which is the final interception. I want to remind us all of something that we saw way back with the first interception of the game. We talked about the read that was going on with these linebackers. We saw USC in trips. We saw that what BYU was doing is that Slovis was reading this defender who's lined up outside of the number 3 receiver. And we saw that guy was almost playing man coming down inside with that receiver. Okay, so think all the way back to that play back at the beginning, or if you're on the replay, you can go back and check it out again. So when number 3 here goes inside, the number 3 receiver goes inside, this guy's basically going to play man on him. And we'll remember that what happened on the past interception is that when this guy came down inside and man, this linebacker crossed his face and came out to cut the number 2 receiver up here. So we're going to see that same thing here. I'm actually going to slow this down. Okay, so here comes number 3. We see the guy lined up outside of him is chasing him down almost like man. And then here comes that linebacker crossing the face of that man defender to get into a zone look and cut inside breaking routes. So this is the exact same coverage that we saw on a previous interception. Now remember, Slovis's mistake on that interception was that he threw to this guy even though this linebacker was dropping out. I argued that he didn't see this linebacker, right? So he's adaptable. He sees this coverage again. He thinks he knows what's going on. What's he going to do? He sees this linebacker flying out wide, so he's going to come back inside to the number 3 receiver, to Drake London right here. And that ball is going to get tipped up. The linebackers are going to close incredibly quickly. In the comments we've been talking about trying to thread the needle, fit the ball in tight. This is 3rd and 6. He tries to rectify the earlier mistake by throwing to the inside threat instead of throwing to this guy, but BYU's in their cover 30, whatever, probably cover 30 cloud again. They have defenders everywhere. They're going to get a nice break on this ball right at the sticks and tip it up for their cornerback to get the interception and seal the game. So the cool insight here is just that this is the exact same coverage that produced an interception earlier in the game. Slovis has learned, but he hasn't learned quite enough because he throws an interception. He just throws it trying to target 2 different guys. Is there anything else that I wanted to say about this play? Let's see here. If you have time to do... Oh, yeah, I could do one more play. 4th quarter, 1:54 left, 3rd and 5. Last play of USC's tying field goal drive. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll check that out in just a sec. Was there anything else I wanted to say about this? I feel like there was. Oh, just in terms of USC's motivation, they've had trouble with the quick game, or with most of their quick game concepts all game at this point. I see what they're going for on 3rd and 6, they know they're in field goal range. They know if it's an incomplete pass, it's not a problem. They want to throw kind of the safe pass to the sticks to see if they can't pick up the first down and try to win the game with a touchdown. But boy, after throwing those 2 interceptions plus the near interception that we saw as well, I think giving Slovis this concept against an 8-man coverage was, maybe a little bit risky. It doesn't look like a risky throw, but given what we've seen throughout this game, it was. BYU's got a ton of defenders in here. 2 of them break on the ball while the third one picks up the interception. I see what USC was going for, but maybe this would have been the time to bring in the H-back and try a run play or something, or at least a different quick game concept, because going back to the play that got you intercepted before and throwing a second interception is a pretty bad look. Okay, let's go check out that play that Hidluday is talking about in the comments. So this is from the fourth quarter, 154. Oh, we got a nice end zone view that we can check out too. Okay, let me remind myself what this play is. Okay, one more time. Oh, I remember this play. Okay, yeah. Actually, let me do one more time. Okay. And I'm going to say one more time again. Okay, so what we're setting up here, this isn't a free release curl flat with the receiver down here and the running back, but the running back is check releasing out into the flat. So this is kind of setting up either like a slant flat or something similar to that curl flat thing that we've seen before. So in the past, we've seen that the read would be on that kind of play, this weak side outside linebacker, he'd be stretched between the slant breaking back inside and the running back releasing out in the flat. Okay, so that is what we would expect. Now, the issue here is that Slovis looks to the right at first. So on this play, he's thinking that he's working this concept up here at the top of the field. And I'm not sure which route he thinks maybe he's looking for a pick with these 2 receivers crossing and these defenders running through traffic. BYU's got a nice bracket on these 2 guys, and he does kind of seem to be eyeing up that bracket. So maybe he was thinking he was going to get a curl or something to that number 3 receiver. But the key is, if he were looking weak side initially, he'd be able to fit this ball in right about here. If he were drilling this ball in, he'd have a good chance at kind of fitting it through there. But the key is that at this point, as the running back's entering that first throwing lane, he's still looking right. And I'm not sure exactly which concept he thinks he has, but I think he's probably right that he doesn't have that concept. I mean, here he's eyeing up this inside linebacker right here, and he's kind of got a nice little 2-on-1 horizontal stretch on that guy, so it makes sense that he's eyeing him up because he's got the tight end curling up here, and he's got Pittman working back across inside. I'm going to slow this down so we can really see it. It looks like Slovis sees this linebacker start to widen outside of the hash. So if we go back a little bit, let's watch his drop right here. Okay, so Slovis looks, that linebacker's on the hash. Slovis looks right, doesn't like what he sees with this bracket, comes back inside. It looks to me like he's trying to work a 2-on-1 on this linebacker who's on the hash. If we run this forward just a bit more, we see that linebacker widens outside of the hash. And so Slovis is trying to hit Pittman when he clears that guy coming back into the second throwing window. I think that that's his decision-making process there. The cornerback makes a nice play to recover there. So yeah, I think that this is kind of a full field read, just working across from right to left. Maybe he's looking at the pick first, then he's coming back inside to the tight end where he's got that 2-on-1 stretch on the linebacker in here. And so he ultimately just ends up reading that linebacker and throwing to Pittman when the linebacker widens outside of him. I think that's probably what's going on. Right? One more time. Read the safety, confirm single high, look right, come back inside, work the 2-on-1 with that linebacker, try to squeeze it into Pittman. What do you think? You agree with that, or what are you seeing there? What route do you think you should have been running? Yeah, I think that something like that's there. It makes sense reading right to left here. Did he round it? Should he have stopped or something? Interesting. Yeah, for those kind of stop routes, I wonder what. Yeah, if he would have parked it. Yeah, maybe. I guess that depends on what the coaching points are. Because the running back's pulling the outside linebacker outside. Yeah, now the running back, I believe, is on a check release, so he's not guaranteed in the route. Yeah, the running back's checking before he's doing kind of a read up to the linebackers. So the running back's not guaranteed. This isn't a true like curl flat or slant flat combo. The coaching points could have gone either way. It's possible that they wanted to sit in that zone, or it's possible that with the tight end coming. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd need to be in the meeting room there, but it's definitely possible that they would have wanted him to sit down in that zone void. Because even though the running back's check releasing and isn't a guaranteed conflict for this linebacker, you could still ask this guy to read that kind of void and feel that he's got that zone void right there. Yeah. It's also possible that the guy that he's worried about is this cornerback right here, and he knows that cornerback's got outside leverage, and so he's booking it across to run away from that guy. Maybe the coaching point is that if he stops with the cornerback on him like that, then the cornerback's going to be able to recover and come over. I don't know. I would need to know more about the coaching points to be able to say for sure. I think it could probably be coached either way. All right, good stuff. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. This is always a lot of fun. The replay will be available if you want to go back and pick through any of this. No way BYU's cornerback could blow up Pittman. You might be, yeah. Maybe tip the ball up. I don't know how they coached it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like in retrospect, if he would have sat down right here, that probably would have been USC's best chance. Because the tight end is definitely holding that guy. If he would have sat, you still could have worked the 2-on-1 on that linebacker. It would have been a better 2-on-1 because Pittman would have sat instead of continuing, and then that tight end would have been the other part of the 2-on-1. So it would have put a better horizontal stretch on that guy for sure. It depends on how they coach the concept, though. Yeah, I think Pittman's probably going to body out and pick that up. I think you're right on that one. All right, yeah, this is always fun. Thanks to everybody who tuned in, to everybody watching on the replay. We'll be back next week. I want to look at USC's offense one more time, checking out their game against Utah, which was a weird game in the opposite direction because they had to play a lot of it with a backup quarterback, and they totally tore things up against one of the most statistically successful defenses in the conference. So check back next week, same time, same place, USC, Utah. I'll see you all there.